Thank you for joining me for this Lifeway study of the book of Psalms. This is session 12, and we're studying Psalm 139, verses 1 to 4, and verses 7 through 16. The title is God's Greatness. The lesson summary statement is, because God has made us, He knows us personally and is with us always. I'm introducing the lesson by asking for someone who's going to be a guesser. And by that, I'm going to ask them to guess the answer to 4 questions of various people in the church. I may ask people who were born in August to raise their hands, and those are going to be the people that the guesser is going to ask the question, see if he can get it right. Here are the 4 questions I'm going to ask him to guess of different people and see if he can get the name right. What's the person's middle name? So he would say to maybe a woman named Mary, I think your middle name is Jane. And we'll find out whether that's true or not. A second question, how many pets do they have? A third question, what's their favorite color? And the fourth question is, how many siblings? I suppose they could ask that of one person, or they might ask that of different people. But what I'm driving at is the people in the class, these are our friends. We know a lot of information about them, and yet there's still a great deal of information we don't know. And it feels bad when you're really not known. But this lesson is about the fact that we have a God who knows everything about us. Because God has made us, He knows us personally and is with us always. Now, for the believer, that statement is a source of great comfort that God knows us personally. But for the unbeliever, that could be a very terrifying question. Now, James Boyce has an outline that follows what our Sunday school lesson does. He uses the theological terms, and here is his outline. Praise God for His omniscience. That's verses 1 to 6. Praise God for His omnipresence, verses 7 to 12. Praise God for His omnipotence. That's verse 13 to 18. And then he points out that verses 19 to the end of the psalm is about 2 responses that people make. Some respond to God in a way that is like an enemy. They're opposed to God. And then there are those who respond in a way that are yielding to God and putting their trust in God. And when you come to the end of the psalm, the psalmist is saying, Lord, you know me thoroughly, you know me better than I know myself. And what I'm asking, God, is that you would reveal the true me so that I can repent of my sin and and have wickedness removed from my life so that I might truly follow after you. But our Sunday school lesson doesn't deal with that part of the lesson. It just deals with these main concepts, these theological concepts. Now, the main theology that's being talked about in this psalm is God's omniscience, that He knows all things. And the supporting doctrines of omnipresence and omnipotence are helping us to understand the fullness of God's knowledge. And so, how is it that God knows us so fully? Well, it's because He's present everywhere. How does He know us so fully? Well, He has the power and He created us, and the Creator knows everything about His creature. And so this passage is teaching us that we can be comforted and know that God has made us and He knows us personally and is with us always. The first point of the lesson is His knowledge. I'm going to give the class the application points first. There's 4 of them, and I've written 1 on each card, and then I'll just randomly pass these out. And the instructions that I'm giving them is, this is the application. So you're getting the application before you get the explanation. But as we go through the text and explain the text, I want you to be thinking about how that teaching applies. For example, this card says it should help us to pray. Knowing that God knows all things, it should help us to pray. And I'm wanting them to think about how do those 2 things interact? The knowledge of God of us and our prayers. Here's a second one. It should humble us. And I'm asking again, how does the omniscience of God humble us? Here's Um, Here are the other 2 points that I'm giving out. It should comfort us. So I'm wanting them to think, how does God knowing everything about us comfort us? And the third point is it should encourage us to live for God. So the 4 points of applications: it should humble us, it should comfort us, it should encourage us to live for God, it should help us to pray. Then I want to just go through the text and give them some explanation. Verse 1 is the reflecting God's perfect knowledge, and verse 2 through 4 is reflecting God's penetrating knowledge. Notice what he says: Lord, you have searched me and known me. The word search here is a word that was used to describe miners who were digging for ore, or scribes who were studying the law, the spies who investigated the land that Joshua sent in. Uh, God has thoroughly searched me out. And the end of that is God knows me. He knows the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of the most condemning passages is Matthew 7, verse 21 to 23, where these people have done tremendous religious works for Christ. And then he says to them, I never knew you. That's the most damning words, I think, possibly in the Bible. And yet this passage is saying that just the opposite is true. God knows them. And so notice it is an emphasis. You have searched me and known me. So it's a full knowledge. God who knows everything knows me, and the God who watches over the universe and knows everything that's happening in the universe. This is really too much to really understand. He's paying attention to me. He's paying attention to you. So there is the perfect knowledge of God. Then verse 2, you know when I sit down and when I stand up. You understand my thoughts from afar. This phrase, sitting down and standing up, is called a merism. And a merism is a way of including everything. It's the whole of life. That's what's being talked about here. You know the whole of my life. And not only do you know my movements, but you know my motivations. You understand my thoughts from afar. So he not only knows what I do, he knows why I do it. And I may not know why I do it, but he knows why I do it. He says, you observe my travels and my rest. There's another merism in which it's talking about the whole of life. You are aware of all my ways. Your Bible study material talks about the fact that this idea of ways is talking about a road being traveled or journey, an example of God's awareness of what we're doing, even when we think we're concealing. And David thought for a year that he had concealed his sin with Bathsheba and his conspiracy to murder her husband, but God knew about that. And so he says, you know all of my ways. In verse 3, when it says, you observe my travels and my rest, the word observe there is a word that is used to describe extending the hand. And oftentimes when they would measure from the tip of the thumb to the tip of the finger. The average man's hand is about 9 inches. And so it was a way of describing, measuring something, the dimensions of something, to come to know it. It was also used to describe winnowing wheat. And you probably are very aware how they would do that in terms of using a fork and tossing it in the air after they'd crushed it, and the seed would fall down and the chaff would blow away. And so when it's saying you observe my travels and my rest, he's saying, you know what's good and you know what's trash in my life. You perceive and you have insight and understanding into all of my ways. And verse 4 is even more amazing. Isn't this amazing? Before a word is on my tongue. I mean, I haven't even thought of it yet. And God already knows what's going to be formulated in my mind. And then what I've thought about, what part of that is actually going to spill out through my mouth. He says, you know even that. So it's an amazing thing. He knows my uh, movements. He knows my motivations. He knows me fully. And notice this last part. You know all about it. There's not a you don't know just a partial amount of it. You know all of it. There's no hiding it. There's no pretending. You simply know everything. So I want to go through that. There may be some questions that the class has as we deal with the text and we uh, contemplate that, and then I want to come back to the class and I want to deal with these points. I want to ask them, okay, those of you who have the cards said that when we understand this about God, that He knows everything, the application point says it should humble us. So I'm asking you, the class, how does an awareness of the knowledge of God, that He knows everything, how does that impact us? How does that create a sense of humility in us? And then I just want to walk down through the rest of these. I want to come to those who have a card on comfort. How does it comfort you to know that God knows everything? Um, how does it encourages us to live for God, that God knows everything? How does it help us to pray? That's what I'm driving at in this class. What I'm trying to do, of course, is take this wonderful doctrine, this very powerful doctrine of the omniscience of God, the all-knowing God, and I'm wanting them to see how powerfully that has an impact upon a believer's life. Now, the second point is His presence, verses 7 through 12. And here, I just want to walk through the text and give an explanation of the text, engage the class in an understanding of the text before I get to the practice of it. So let me just walk through the text with you. What you see in this text, there's three conceivable escape routes or hiding places. And the psalmist is saying, God's there. Now you can go to heaven or you can go to Sheol, the abode of the dead. What you find out is God's there. You can go to the greatest distances, as far east as you can go where the sun comes up, as far west to the other side of the ocean. You just simply find out that God is already there. And then the third place where you might escape from God or hide from God is darkness. And then you discover that darkness is like light to Him. So there's no escaping the presence of God. He says in verse 7, where can I go to escape your spirit? And of course, it implies the answer, nowhere. And you'll notice that what happens in verse 7 is the subject switches. It switches from talking about God to now we're talking about the psalmist. Where can I flee from your presence? And the word presence there is literally the word faces. Where can I get away from your face? Moses wanted to see the face of God, and God said, we're not that good of friends. And so He hid him in the cleft of the rock. And yet, in Revelation 22, verse 4, it says of believers that one day we shall see His face. We will be in His presence. His eye is on you. Verse 8, if I go up to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. So if he goes as high as possible, where God's abode is, well, he finds God there. If he goes to the grave, he finds God there. And notice the way that this phrase that says, you are there and you are there. It's written with a sense of surprise. It's actually just two words. There, thou. He's surprised. It's of all people. I wasn't expecting to find you here. And here you are there. I might expect to find a family member there. I might expect to find a friend there. But what I actually find when I go, wherever that might be, is I find that God is there. Verse 9, if I fly on the wings of the dawn and settle down on the western horizon, even there your hand will lead me. So in every direction, up, down, east, west, he's picturing that he knows as the sun comes up in the east and the light just quickly passes across the land. And he said, if I were to be able to travel that fast, I still wouldn't be able to get away from you. You know that light travels at 186,000 miles per second. And that means that light can travel around the earth 7.5 times in 1 second. The sun's 93 million miles away, and it takes 8 minutes for the light from the sun to reach the earth. That's traveling very, very fast. He says, even if I could travel at the speed of light, I would not be able to get away from your presence. He says in verse 10, even there your hand will lead me, your right hand will hold on to me. The right hand was the hand of power, the hand of skill, the hand of authority. In verse 11, if I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light around me will be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. So the night shines like the day, darkness and light are alike to you. So he's saying, I can't even find a way of getting away from your presence when it's dark. Now, again, as I mentioned, if you're a believer, there's a real comfort in that because there are some dark days ahead. But if you're an unbeliever, that can be very terrorizing. He says this word Sheol. You'll have a study there. You could look it up also in the Bible dictionary. The Old Testament, it's a shadowy place. It's a place of the grave. It is the place where the spirits go afterwards. There seems to have been two levels to it, a place for the righteous, a place for the unrighteous. It develops more fully in the New Testament to this doctrine of hell. And sometimes in our language, we're not so very sharp and specific, and we talk about hell being a place where God is absent. That's not true. God is present everywhere. His qualities of grace are not in hell, but his qualities of wrath and vengeance and judgment are certainly present in hell. One of the terrible tortures of hell is to know that that will never, ever change. So now I want to talk to them about this powerful doctrine. What practices can we develop to help us be more aware of God's presence? There's a book called Practicing the Presence of God. It is an old book. The author is a monk by the name of Brother Lawrence, who lived many years ago. He was a soldier, and he wanted to be repentant over his life, and so he became a monk, and he was assigned the task of washing the dishes for the monastery. Now, this very drudgery kind of assignment, he came to an understanding that you must be able to even do something as simple as washing dishes, something as mundane and drudging for the glory of God. And so he learned and began to practice the presence of Christ there in the kitchen while he washed dishes and later as he cooked. And there became such a wonderful spirit about him that people noticed it, and they began to write him and ask him questions about how they could know God so closely as he did. And he would write them back answers. And that's what the book is. The book is him responding to people and writing them in these letters. And the title of the book is worth buying the book, Practicing the Presence of Christ. And so that's what I'm asking in the class. How can we practice the presence of Christ? What are things that we can do that would help us be more aware that we are in the presence of God? And of course, they'll mention things that deal with their devotional practices, Bible reading and prayer and church attendance and attending Sunday school, hopefully. And all of those things are true. But there are other things that could take place during the week. What would be some of those things? And here are some things that I have, if they just need to be prompt. How about practicing gratitude? How about making a list of 10 things that you're grateful for? And each day this week, you don't have to do it for the rest of your life, but just each day this week, you just rehearse those 10 things that you're grateful for and use that as a way to enter into the presence of Christ. How about just pick some mundane activity that you are involved in, whatever that might be. Maybe some house cleaning chore, or maybe it's washing the car or mowing the yard, or just something of that nature that typically your mind is going in other directions, or you're listening to music or something. And how about just take a moment in that mundane activity, and in the midst of that, cultivate the awareness of God. What would it be like if Jesus Christ was right there with you when you were doing that? There's also prompts. Every time you see a stoplight, that was prompt you to that this today I'm going to remember to think about God. Every time I see a stoplight, or I'm sitting at a stoplight, or how about when you check your watch? That would be a time to whisper a prayer to God about some matter that you're concerned about. Or when you see an ambulance go by, you use that as a prompt to pray to God for the people who are in crisis. Or maybe even set a timer on your phone, and at a certain time during the day, when it goes off, you take a moment just to offer prayer to God. How about this one? Really listen to someone when they're talking to you. Really seek to be present when they're talking to you. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do what Brother Lawrence did, and that is to just practice the presence of Christ. The third point is his power. And of course, we're talking about omnipotence. I'm going to show them a bag of dirt, just a baggie. And there are three basic categories of particles in dirt. There is clay, sand, and silt. In Oklahoma, there's over 550 different kinds of soil in Oklahoma. But my point that I'm wanting to make to them, as I show them this baggie of dirt, is this is the building blocks God used for human beings. He just took plain old dirt. Now look what he did with dirt. And I have a video, it's about 5 to 6 minutes long, and it's just about the brain. It's 10 facts about the human brain, and it's just amazing. The brain, they've never even come close to building a supercomputer that can do and process information like the human brain. It is a miracle. It is a phenomenon. And so what I want to do is just show them this video, and just to see how magnificent the creation of God was when he made a human brain. And he did that with dirt. Now, with that in mind, I want to talk about this text. See, if we don't understand that God is all powerful, we don't have the right understanding of God at all. If we don't have an understanding that God's all powerful, then whatever God it is we're believing in, it is not the God of the Bible. Because we're thinking there's something greater than God, but there's not. So what you see in this passage in verse 13 and 14 is you see the personal nature of God's creative work in our life. And then verses 15 through 16 is his providential power and his planning our life. And the amazing thing about the text is when the psalmist wanted to talk about the power of God, he doesn't go to Genesis 1 and talk about the creative power of God. In one sense, he just says, I'd like you to just look in the mirror and just look at what God has done in creating you. You don't have any secondhand parts. Now, I don't know if you've had a surgery or not, but when God made you, you were original. And he uses just a human being, he uses you as the testimony of the amazing power of God. So let me go through the text quickly. For it was you who created my inward parts, so that's the hidden part, the non-physical part of me. You knit me together in my mother's womb, so there's skill that's involved in that. I will praise you. Now, you see what he's done? He's just simply talking about the way God's created him, and just a contemplation on God making him results in him sending praises to God. When was the last time that you actually spent time praising God for the way he's made you? He said, I will praise you because I have been remarkably and wondrously made. Your works are wondrous. This word works here is used to describe amazing things that have been done. And this idea of wondrous is the idea of God doing something um, that causes awe. Now, the Israelites he's talking to, they had not experienced the Exodus. They hadn't seen the deliverance and been a part of the deliverance through the Red Sea, but they had experienced the wonder of human birth. And he said, because of that, because you are a human being, this should cause you to be in wonder, amazement at the work of God. And he goes on and says, and I know this very well. And then verse 15, he begins this providential expression of his power. My bones were not hidden from you. No human sees these things, but God does. My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret, when I was formed in the depths of the earth. The idea is we can't see what's in the depths of the earth, and the mother's womb was to them the same as that. You couldn't see what was going on in the mother's womb, but God saw it. Verse 16, your eyes saw me when I was formless. All my days were written in your books and planned before a single one of them. And so there's lots of wonderful things in there that you may want to discuss with your class. So what I'm asking the class to do is to take the personal study guide and make 3 columns. One's relational, one's physical, and one's spiritual. So, and then I'm wanting them to ask, would you write one thing under the category of physical where you feel a weakness? Now, you may not want to write it because you're sitting next to someone, but you could use a number, let's say, or you could use some kind of a code. And you know what that stands for in terms of your physical weakness. And then when it comes to your relationships, is there a relationship in which you feel weak and powerless and you would want to see the work of God take place, but you don't have the power to make anything happen? Make some kind of code that reflects that. And then, of course, there's the spiritual category. Where is it that you're feeling a weakness spiritually? Where, if God were to ask you, what can I do to bless you spiritually? You'd say this. Make some note of that. Now, here's what I'm asking the class to do for this week. I want them to take those 3 things and to bring them before God, who knows everything. He has the wisdom. He understands the motivations. He understands the movements, all that's happening in all of those things that we're experiencing weakness. He is there present with us, and he has the power to do something about it. Whether that means he sustains us to endure it, or whether that means he changes us or he changes them. But this is a God that is of great power. And because God has made us, he knows us personally and is with us always. That's the assignment that I want to give the class for the week. Thank you for joining me, and I trust that these things may spur your ideas about how you could approach your class with this magnificent psalm. God bless you.